Hello and welcome, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the gear that I bring when I go ski mountaineering. Let's dive in. So hello and welcome back, or welcome to my channel, and if you're new here, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. That way you won't miss one of these videos in the future. So a few weeks ago I did a reel on Instagram which basically showed the ski mountaineering kit that I use, but I didn't really have time to explain certain things about it, so I thought I'd make this video so I can dive in a little bit deeper about why I've chosen to bring certain things and why some things are really important. And also there's one other thing that I left out from the reel that I'm going to talk about a little bit later in the video. So this is basically my ski mountaineering kit. This is what I'm going to bring if I'm going skiing on a glacier, if I have any abseiling, if there's any kind of ridge work, moving along a ridge or climbing a rocky step or things like that. This is the tools that I need to be able to do those tasks. There's some things that I might not bring, but most of this stuff is going to come with me all the time. Some of it lives in my bag and some of it is on my body. So we'll talk a little bit about where things are and what each purpose is of these bits and pieces. So let's start with this. This, I think, is a crucial bit of kit for ski mountaineering. Obviously, some people choose not to wear a helmet when skiing, and that's their prerogative. That's fine, I guess. For me, I wear a helmet 100% of the time when I'm skiing. You know, even really good skiers do fall over, and you could be really unlucky and give yourself a horrendous brain injury, and all that for not wearing a helmet. Why not just stick one on? These helmets from Smith, this is the new Summit helmet. This is rated for climbing and skiing, so it is actually a really useful piece of kit. You can have it and use it on really cool adventures. It's got good little straps on the side of it here for clipping onto the outside of the bag. It's got a foldable boa at the back, so that kind of sits inside of the helmet like this. It's nice and light, it's 400 grams. It's fairly well ventilated without being so ventilated that you're getting snow kind of stuck in your helmet. So yeah, really nice piece of kit. Definitely use a helmet. Just use a helmet. Why would you not use a helmet? Obviously other manufacturers make helmets as well. Petzl have helmets that are also rated climbing and skiing. So there's no excuse really. You can find a helmet that covers you for skiing and climbing. The reason that they've got different ratings is climbing is rated for a top impact and skiing is rated for a side and back impact. So having a multi-certified helmet is the best thing for ski mountaineering. So the next piece of kit I want to talk about is the harness. This is the Petzl Fly. This is the harness that I use for most of my ski mountaineering. I really like this harness because you can put in different protection and padding into the hip belt and the legs. So if you want a little bit more comfort, you could leave that padding in the hip belt and just take it out of the leg loops, or you can leave it in everything. Or what I quite often do is I just take all the padding out, and that gives me a little bit more kind of lightweight setup. On the front of the harness here, I've got a carabiner that doesn't twist, which has got a magnetic closure. So I don't have to think about kind of locking the screw gate on my harness. Now that's really nice because if you fall in a crevasse, for example, and somebody's lowering a rope to you, you can clip the knot of the rope into that carabiner, and you don't have to worry about screwing up the screw gate. And also it's not going to cross load, so you're not going to end up in any bad situations with the carabiner twisted like this. So try and find something that has a kind of non-twisting function, and basically that's just going to live on my harness. And the reason that it lives there all the time is I might need to really quickly tie into the rope. For example, if somebody has fallen in a crevasse, I need to get a rope to them, and then I need to clip in with a clove hitch or an overhand knot. So having a carabiner already loaded onto my harness is going to make that much quicker and more efficient. So this is the other hardware that kind of lives outside of the bag, and I clip it to the shoulder straps and I spread it out a little bit, so I've got a few different things on different sides. And the reason that I put it onto the shoulder straps of my bag is if I'm roped up to somebody on a glacier and they fall in, I can take off my rucksack, I can put it on the ground, and I can put the gear onto the back part of the rucksack that sits against my back, and it's kind of like a a table. It's kind of like, you know, I can see everything. Rather than having to reach around onto my harness to find things, I can just see everything whilst it's on my bag. Now the downside with that is, if you put your bag down in the bottom of the cable car, for example, stuff is going to get a bit dirty. But if you're worried about that, then you could always just have it in a bunch like this, and before you step out and start heading out on your tour, you can take it out and just quickly clip it to the straps of your rucksack. So let's go through everything that I have here, and there are a few other bits and pieces that will be in the bag as well, but let's talk about this gear here. So on here I have a tib lock, a beal jammy, and the Petzl nano traction. I did a little short reel about how you fold these up, so check out my Instagram for that. Now sometimes I think I prefer the micro traction because it has the feature that you can lock it open, but the nano traction is a little bit lighter, and again, this is really for emergency stuff. The downside with the nano traction is that you can't lower it down to somebody and then get them to just lock the teeth onto the rope, which is quite a useful thing to do in some crevasse rescue situations, but it is a little bit smaller and lighter, so yeah, maybe a micro traction's better, but I've got a nano traction here. The BL jammy or a prusik is going to be very useful for abseiling, and also in certain situations with crevasse rescue, you need to be able to unload something, or you know, you always need really 3 ways of jamming the rope to kind of cover all scenarios with crevasse rescue. The nice thing about the tib lock, the nano traction, and the micro traction is that they work really well with the Petzl rad line, which is a 6mm hyperstatic cord, and I like that you can use these tools with that rope. I basically have this stuff clipped all together, and I have the prusik in between the nano traction and the tib lock, and that basically stops things from rattling around a little bit more than if you were to have the tib lock next to the nano traction. So just that little bit of cord stops it from rattling around. The next piece of kit that I carry a lot is the Petzl Connect Adjust. Now I normally have this on the harness, already put on the harness, and when I'm skiing on a glacier, I tend to clip it up high as well. The reason for that is if you're skiing down and you fall into a crevasse, you might not fall in the whole way, you might be basically stuck with your arms kind of holding you on the surface. And if somebody can get over to you and clip the rope to your carabiner, which is up high on your bag, then they're going to have a much easier time getting you out rather than having to reach down and clip into your harness. So having a high attachment point is a really good idea. The reason that I like this over a sling or a different type of lanyard is if I were to fall in a crevasse, I might want to put in a screw. And putting in a screw, I need to be able to clip to it and then tighten myself up. And you can do this with a Connect Adjust, but it's a little bit more difficult to do that with a sling. So have a think about that. It might not be for you, but I do tend to find these are quite useful, and they are also very useful when you're abseiling. You can position yourself in the right place. So this is a short eye screw with a quick draw. Now this would live maybe more on my harness, so it's kind of tucked into the leg loop on the harness. The quick draw is really useful if you have to use it as a runner. So for example, you're getting over a bergschrund and there's a blob of ice there. You want to put in an ice screw and you want a quick draw so you can clip the rope through that as you move over the bergschrund. Yeah, a stubby eye screw though, and that's going to be quicker to put in if I need it in the bottom of a crevasse, for example. So I've got 2 oval carabiners with 2 120cm slings. The reason that I've got this length and the reason that I've got oval carabiners is I find that this is the most versatile length. It's not too long and cumbersome, but you can also shorten them down by using an overhand knot. I find that you do need 2 for building a good solid snow anchor with, for example, a buried ski and a vertically placed ski that you've used as a temporary anchor. You might need one as a foot loop for prosecuting up the rope, and you might need the other one for looping around the skis when you're climbing up the rope. The reason I've got oval carabiners on here is that you can use them in different ways. You can put a tib lock or a micro traction into there. If you have kind of a square corner to the carabiner, then you can't use it with certain knots very efficiently. For example, a munter hitch. You can put a clove hitch into here very easily. I just find that an oval carabiner is the most versatile design or shape of carabiner. If you're looking for a video all about locking carabiners, I did do one on my channel before, so check that out. So the next thing to talk about is a belay device. Now, I tend to bring a Petzl reverso, and I might also bring this, which is a Mammoth mini figure of 8. Unfortunately for you guys, they don't make these anymore. They are really useful with thin ropes. So if I am using 6mm Kevlar to do, a couple of abseils, for example, I would probably bring this. The nice thing about a reverso, though, is if you want to belay somebody, for example, over a cornice, or to ski cut a slope, you can give somebody a little bit more kind of slack in the system as they go down, because there's a little bit less friction with this device with a 6mm cord. But yeah, you can't really use it as a normal belay device with the thin kind of ropes that we use for ski mountaineering. But for normal ropes, if you're doing actual ridge climbing or actual climbing with skis, then that's what you're going to need. Importantly, I've got it on a round bar carabiner. The reason for that is that's going to work the best. It's going to give you consistent friction, because it doesn't matter which direction this carabiner is facing, it's going to give you the same amount of friction. It means that you can use an Italian hitch in there, and it's a very consistent amount of friction. If you need more friction, then it is definitely better using a kind of I-beam style carabiner that has a little kind of groove in it. These ones give you a little bit less friction, but it's nice to have one of those. And I have obviously the other type with my Tiblock, Prosuk, etc. So on the outside of the bag, I'm either going to have an ice axe or a pair of ice axes. Now, I have done a full video about ice axes. I've done a full video about ski mountaineering ice axes, so you should check those out. But this would definitely be the setup that I'd bring if I was doing something that had a little bulge in it, or if I've got a bergschrund to cross, or if I feel like I might have to maybe climb out of a crevasse because I'm with a group and I'm not certain about their ability to be able to pull me out of a crevasse. Interestingly, I'd say for ski mountaineering, I'd probably more often than not carry the hammer rather than the adze. I feel like you can kind of chop around a little bit with the pick of an ice axe, but you can't really hammer in a piton with an adze. If you were going more mountaineering, then I'd say an adze is more useful. Just a little thought about which one I would take if I was just taking one. So that's basically everything that's outside of my bag. And now let's have a look at stuff that I'm going to be carrying on the inside of my bag. So this is a Petzl rad line. This is 30 meters, and I've put it into this bag, and I've tied a knot in through the bottom of here. There's a figure of 8 on the inside, basically. And the reason that I've got it in a bag is I can throw it to somebody if they're half in a crevasse. I can get them to clip to this loop of the bag, and then I can pull the rest of the rope out, and then I can attach it to myself or attach it to an anchor and start doing the crevasse rescue. If it's all kind of coiled up, it's going to take you a long time to uncoil that and then, make some hand coils and throw it to them. So I definitely always have it in a bag like this. Obviously, if I'm doing longer abseils or if I've got a bigger group, I would take a longer rope, but I'd say most of the time I have a 30, and I like to have at least 2 30-meter ropes in the group. Next thing is a set of crampons. Very useful in ski mountaineering or, backcountry skiing where there's cliffs and maybe you have to go out through a waterfall, for example. Having a light set of crampons can really help you in a lot of situations. This is the Petzl Urbis Hybrid, one of my favorite crampons. Again, I've done a full video on crampons. You should go and check that out as well. This is 4 meters of 6mm Kevlar, and this is really indispensable for building belays and certain crevasse rescue situations. Definitely always carry this in my bag, even if I'm not planning to go ski mountaineering. It's actually kind of bridges the gap between ski mountaineering gear and kind of emergency equipment. So inside the bag, I'm going to be carrying a kind of 20 centimeter ice screw. This has got a threader on the inside, and I've put an elastic loop through this Petzl type one, and that just holds it in there. So this has got kind of a hook on it, and it's also got a blade down here for cutting the cord. Very handy piece of kit. You can get various different types of these. I quite like this one. Goes in there. Wrapped around the outside, I've got this kind of edge protection material. Unfortunately, I can't tell you where I got this from because it was such a long time ago that I got this. It was more than 10 years ago, but I think you should probably be able to find something similar from maybe a boat chandlery or something like that. Have a look for different, types of edge protection. But basically all this is a piece of pre-curled rubber, and it sits around the outside of a rope, and then you could put that over a particularly sharp edge, and that's going to protect the ropes a little bit more as you come down. And then when you pull it, it might fall off, or it might get lost. But yeah, certainly a good idea. I have seen people core shotting ropes quite a bit. Having one of those wrapped around your ice screw is probably a good thing. If I'm going somewhere where I think I might have to abseil down a couloir or build some kind of rock belay, then I'll bring a handful of different wires, maybe 3 or 4 old ones that I don't mind leaving behind. And I might also bring a knife blade or a couple of knife blades that I can hammer into a really thin crack. I've just put these on a lightweight Petzl ice climbing racking carabiner, but you could put that on a normal carabiner, or you could just put them kind of loose in there to save a little bit of weight. But this could really get you out of some sticky situations if you're, couloir skiing, for example. The other piece of kit that I didn't include in the Instagram reel that I made was this, which is the beal escaper. And you might have seen these, they're a pretty controversial piece of kit, but I do actually use this quite often when I'm ski mountaineering. The idea with these is you can basically attach the rope to here, thread this through the anchor, thread it through all these kind of sections of the cord here, and then when it's under load, it won't move, and when you let go of it, it kind of works its way through. I do, as I said, use this quite often. I think it is a nice lightweight option, and it changes you from having, if you've got 2 30-meter ropes, you can only abseil 30 meters. If you've got 1 30-meter rope and a beal escaper, you could theoretically do a 30-meter abseil. Again, it just gives you a little bit of flexibility with what you're doing. So that's pretty much everything that I carry on my body, on my rucksack, and in my rucksack for ski mountaineering, excluding things like clothing, food, and all that kind of periphery stuff. That's the real kind of kit that I will have for skiing on a glacier, abseiling, ridges, crossing bergschrunds, all that kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff that you will need. So hopefully you found that video useful. If you've got any questions or comments or ideas for other videos that you want to see on this channel, please go down there and leave a comment. Otherwise, give this video a thumbs up, and as always, I'll see you next time. Cheers, guys.